Now, Sinead O'Connor was laid to rest today in her home county of Wicklow. Thousands of locals turned out to pay their respects, including former survivors of the infamous Magdalen laundries, the President of Ireland, and pop legends Bob Geldof and Bono from U2. Well, joining me to discuss Sinead's legacy is Irish DJ and friend of the singer, Dave Fanning. Thank you for making time on this day, Dave. And just talk to us a little bit about the legacy that Sinead leaves behind and what you knew of her.
Well, the legacy would probably be, I mean, like if you look back, like 33 years is a long time. So that was the time she made a really big impact when she tore up the picture of the Pope on TV. And a lot of people thought, what's this about? And a lot of people there today probably were even behind the idea that, who is this kind of uppity, petulant woman, who was sort of basically put out in front for a metaphorical sort of stoning. She was the target of a staggering amount of vitriol, including public protest, etc. And this worldwide sort of misogynistic temper tantrum, she really took it on the chin, and she knew exactly what she was doing, and she was telling the truth completely. And a lot of people just didn't really want to know. 10 years later, we found out that she was telling the truth, and 10 and 10 more years, in other words, 30 years now since, we find out just how bad the situation actually really was. A nest of devils, she called it, right up to the top of the Vatican, and she was 100% correct. But other things too, many other social issues. She spoke about so many things, and she was a spiritual seeker in the deepest sense as well. And her religion, like today for the last day too, the Imam said some fantastic things about her too, which basically, it was just too much of a world that she had to live in, because she was not, she had a lot of sort of issues in terms of her mental health down through the years.
Yeah, I mean, so many different strands that we can go into there, too much of the world. And yes, to remind our viewers that she did convert to Islam a few years ago. So she had a Muslim burial today. Also, just the facts of what's going on, just in case anyone watching isn't aware, no cause of death has yet been revealed. And she was, of course, a mother of four. She's survived by 3 of her children. One of the Magdalen survivors actually says that Sinead changed Ireland forever. What do you think was meant by that? Because as you said there, she was just never shy to stray away from these really complex topics and speak out on them.
Changed Ireland. Absolutely, she changed Ireland. I mean, even in terms of hashtag Me Too. I mean, like, she was many years before all of that kind of thing. There was a huge breakthrough for feminism every few years with the type of things she was saying. Some people were there today. I saw them being interviewed talking about the fact that, she gave me the kind of opportunity, or she gave me the right to be who I actually am, as opposed to who society might have wanted one to be. Because this was a very patriarchal society at the time. And she was really like out there in terms of, this is what I want to say, this is what I want people to believe. And in so many ways, there's been a lot of documentaries recently that have sought to correct kind of the record of several women who were once punching bags. I mean, even we're all guilty maybe of looking at, red top newspapers from 13 or 14 years ago and whatever. Britney Spears, oh, look, she's cut her hair off and all the rest. But Britney Spears and Lorena Bobbitt and Pamela Anderson and Monica Lewinsky and Sinead was probably the first to be cancelled of all the ones I'm mentioning. And then people have seen today, people have seen in the last 2 weeks, I should say, just how prescient she was and just how much she had her finger on the pulse.
Absolutely. Now, those mental health concerns that you raised, again, very, very public for Sinead. She was outspoken about them. How do you think she changed the way that mental health was perceived, especially amongst celebrities and singers, as you said there, who are very much in the glare of the public eye all the time?
I don't think that Sinead herself was very much kind of on some kind of a crusade on that level, because she had a lot of problems of her own. There was a lot of trauma, a lot of controversies, and big mental health struggles, which of course she played out in the public eye. She always wanted to be listened to. She always wanted to be heard. She certainly wasn't shy about it all. But obviously in terms of so much that we've seen with Amanda Bynes and so many others down through the last few years, it is out there in the open. And I would say also that even in terms of singers, from PJ Harvey to Alanis Morissette to a few others, Sinead opened the door for all of that kind of thing, to be angry and upfront and, not necessarily to be what was it that she said about, you don't have to sort of be there just for men's sort of approval or whatever. You have to be who you want to be.
And she very much was, as you said, almost too much for this world. Morrissey has come out in the days after we found out about her death to say, look, where were you all? In essence, I can't remember his exact wording, but where were you all when she most needed it? Here you are with your platitudes now, you're crying for her now, but where were you then? Do you think that's fair?
I do actually, in so many ways. Yeah, I do think it took a long time for people to actually embrace Sinead, if you like. Many people did in the 90s. But I mean, it has taken, in the last 2 weeks, it's changed an awful lot of things. It's terrible to think that her death had to do all of that. But she was exposing the sexism and the casual cruelty that was rampant in the media, not just stuff that was going on in the Catholic Church. And I do think that, what she has done, I can get exactly what I think there was somebody else was giving out about that today as well. I can't remember who. Oh, Lily Allen. She was also saying the same thing. And they have a point, because at the time, you've got to remember that there were people even there today at the funeral who probably feel slightly guilty that back in the early 90s, they were kind of going, who is basically this loony? What's her problem? And they were.
Now, we've covered some very heavy topics from her lifetime. It seemed to be scattered with them, but of course she was also just, as you, a personal friend to you. I'm sure you shared light moments as well. Have you got any personal recollections that you can share of your favourite times with Sinead?
Look, one of the things a couple of years ago, we were going to make this documentary about her, and she said, listen, most people think I'm, complete and absolute loony. And I said, really? I wonder why? And we just fell around laughing. I mean, like, obviously she knows she wasn't stupid, like she was very fearless. She was very fragile, often at the same moment and often in the same song. She was very self-deprecating. She was uncompromising. She was a sharp observer of so many different things, but also she was incredibly kind. And there was nothing in her life. She never wanted the fame that she got from that second album, from Nothing Compares to You, and she immediately threw it all away. In fact, her next album was a selection of jazz classics. And then after that, knowing that her albums weren't going to top charts or weren't going to get in the way of all the pop music that was going on. By the way, nothing to do with, like, say, the Madonna, who was just as famous at the time. If they want to go off and want to be pop stars, that's fine. And she wasn't even against that. It just, that was not for her. And the albums she released were kind of explorations of certain genres of music that she wanted to go to. So, for instance, in 2002, the Shan Nos Nua album was just old Irish traditional singing album. 3 years later, popped off to Jamaica, and Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare, the two famous producers, produced a reggae album. And that's what she wanted to do. She has a bunch of songs ready to go, which she played me recently, which David Holmes, the Belfast musician, DJ, producer, etc., has made. And I presume that's the last that she has. But I mean, her last two albums, actually, from 2012 and 2014, some of the best pop songs she's ever released. But by that stage, people weren't necessarily buying Sinead albums. That didn't really worry Sinead, I can tell you. That's not what she was in it for.
Working right up until the end. Just quickly, Dave, before we let you go, and thank you for sharing all your recollections, one track that people should listen to when they're thinking of Sinead.
Well, I'd go for Troy myself, or go for one of the happy ones on the last album, like Fourth and Vine. I think that's a great song. But Troy is the one from the early album.
Fourth and Vine. There you go. That's a recommendation from Dave Fanning. Thank you for sharing your recollections of Sinead O'Connor on this day when she was laid to rest.